2023 was undeniably an incredible year for anime. Last year we saw everything from the high-intensity action of Jujutsu Kaisen to the captivating adventure of Heavenly Delusions to the joyful romance of The Dangers in My Heart to the profound journey of Vinland Saga to the well-deserved ending of Attack on Titan to the record-breaking beginning of Oshinoko. But among all the hundreds of animes that came out in 2023, there was one that stood out the most, having taken over the anime community for over 5 months now and becoming practically inescapable on every single social media platform. Frieren Beyond Journey's End has been one of the most spectacular works of art based on an equally great story set in a fantasy world that has turned into one of the most popular anime to have come out of last year, having countless videos, memes, fanarts and animations being made around every tiny aspect of the series. Everyone loves this anime so much that not only are some people calling Frieren anime of the year, but it has even dethroned Fullmetal Alchemist to become the #1 anime of all time. But to understand how exactly we got to this point, we first need to go back to the 28th of April 2020, when the first chapter of Frieren had just been released. This first chapter had a really interesting premise, some great artwork, and an amazing execution that caught many people's attention, including that of a man named Shoichiro Taguchi. Taguchi was a producer working at Toho Animations who had a very emotional reaction upon reading the newly released manga and decided that even though there was only one chapter out at the moment, he would make an anime out of the series no matter what. Taguchi soon approached another producer working at Madhouse with his anime proposal, and together, they began assembling an A-list team of talented individuals with Keiichiro Saito serving the role of director. You might not have heard of Keiichiro Saito before, but you have definitely seen his first directorial work ever, which came out in the fall of 2022 and ended up taking the entire anime community by storm. Given the insane success and reach of Bocchi the Rock, I think it's safe to say that Frieren was in great hands. With this adaptation, the staff working at Madhouse had hoped to create an anime that would be widely loved by many people for a long time to come. If somehow they could actually achieve this goal, then the reputation of Studio Madhouse could very well be restored. Because the thing is, Madhouse's legacy as a powerhouse of anime had been all but lost in the last decade. Aside from a couple of titles here and there, Madhouse hasn't really been able to make any mainstream hits ever since their now iconic adaptation of One Punch Man that came out all the way back in 2015. Now, after almost 8 years later, when Frieren's first trailer had just come out and received millions of views online, it was starting to look as if Frieren could finally be that anime which redeems Madhouse's name in the community as one of the best in the industry. But just because the staff members spent almost 3 years worth of time and effort into planning and producing this series doesn't necessarily guarantee its success. Chainsaw Man was a similarly ambitious project, having 12 different fully animated ending songs, many anime original scenes, and a whole lot of outstanding animation sequences in every single episode. But their efforts did not quite reflect in the sales of the anime the way Mappa had hoped for. So to make sure that Frieren doesn't meet the same fate as the Chainsaw Man adaptation, they somehow needed to find a way to ensure the success of the anime even before it got released, which is exactly what they did. Oshinoko's feature film length premiere was and still is one of the biggest reasons behind the anime's critical acclaim and success. After probably learning from Oshinoko's opening episode, the publishers behind Frieren decided to go for a 2-hour-long premiere in hopes the anime will get the hype it very much deserves. And it actually worked. Everyone was so hyped out over the upcoming series that Frieren ended up becoming the most anticipated non-sequel anime of the fall 2023 season. And once the anime finally came out, not only did it manage to live up to the insane amounts of hype, but it even exceeded everyone's expectations with its phenomenal first few episodes, because of which Frieren immediately became the highest rated anime of that season. But before we talk about why Frieren is such a special show, let's actually explore what this anime is all about. Set in a fantasy world where magic and demons exist, the show takes place after our party of adventurers consisting of Himmel the hero, Haito the priest, Aizen the warrior, and our main character of the story, Frieren the mage, have already defeated the demon lord and are triumphantly returning from their 10-year-long journey. For Himmel and the others, this was an adventure of a lifetime that they all cherished deeply. But for Frieren, their adventure was a mere 10 years. Since Frieren is over 1,000-year-old elf mage, she doesn't perceive time the same way that humans do. She cannot empathize with Himmel and the others when they reminisce about their journey, or when they appreciate the meteor shower that happens only once every 50 years.
Beautiful.
The view from inside the city isn't very good.
I'm trying to have a moment here, Don't spoil the mood.
Frieren doesn't care about stuff like companions or taking on an apprentice because she doesn't see the point in spending time with someone knowing that she will outlive them by decades if not centuries. I mean heck, she barely remembers to keep her promise of seeing each other after 50 years to watch that same meteor shower because that adventure they had together simply didn't mean much to her. Or at least that's what Frieren told herself this entire time. It's only after Himmel passes away that Frieren finally realizes the true value and importance of the time she spent on her meaningless adventures. Time she could have used to get to know her friends a little better. Time that she will never get back.
Why didn't I try to better know and understand you?
Himmel's death affects Frieren in ways she cannot yet understand, and so Frieren decides to set out on a brand new journey, only this time to try and better understand humanity. And in doing so, Frieren meets many new people, reunites with some old friends, and the more she learns about the people around her, the more she begins to realize just how life-changing those mere 10 years truly were for her.
It's funny, don't you think, how much that 1/100th has changed you?
The story of Frieren is defined by those moments of self-reflection. The show takes its time to properly explore and expand upon the various themes and characters without ever feeling too slow or drawn out. Because something interesting is always going on in the world of Frieren. One moment you can be harvesting some pumpkins, collecting useless spells, searching for some mysterious flowers, and petting a giant turtle. Then suddenly you're thrown right in the middle of a main boss fight against a demon who was sealed off for 80 years, but doesn't even last 80 seconds in said fight. However interesting the initial plot of this anime might sound to be, it's only after Frieren teams up with Fern and Stark to go on a journey back to the north near the Demon Lord's castle when the real fun of the story begins. Together they travel from place to place, they get into trouble, they fight against demons, they fight against themselves, they have giant hamburger parties, but most importantly, they share a strong, genuine chemistry between themselves that makes every moment of their interaction feel just as important and precious as the high-stakes scenarios they sometimes find themselves in. Every other character in Frieren also has a clear presence and purpose in the story. It doesn't matter whether you spend a few episodes or a few minutes with some of these people you meet on this journey, because they will inevitably leave a long-lasting impression on you. Whether it is Old Man Voil, Kraft the Monk, Zion the Priest, Tenken the Fist User, or basically any female character from Frieren who are literally unforgettable for more reasons than I can possibly list. There are moments in this anime that make you laugh, make you feel warm, make you feel uncomfortable, make you cry from the outside, make you cry from the inside.
So small.
No part of me small!
Before presenting you with the most jaw-dropping and beautiful pieces of art and animation. Everything in this anime, from the detailed background art, to the highly refined flashback scenes, to the slightly shifting ornament, to Fern clutching some fucking grass, to the anime's weird obsession with having the most realistic movements possible for just about everything, are all things that your average viewer wouldn't even notice, but are all things that prove that the star working Studio Madhouse very clearly put a lot of care into making the world of Frieren feel believable. It's one thing for an anime to be well animated in small bursts of high energy moments, and it's another entirely for it to look absolutely stunning this consistently. When you think of animation, the intense action sequences of shows like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen are typically the things that come to mind. But that's not all that animation is about. Other action shows often take shortcuts during the more laid back and slice of life scenes to save up effort for the real flashy fight scenes, which there's absolutely nothing wrong about. But since action in Frieren is scarce at best, it allows the team to hyper focus on making everything look as good as it possibly can be. For example, when someone talks in Frieren, the other characters in the background don't just stand there with a single unchanging expression as they stare into the soul of the person speaking in front of them, but instead they react accordingly to the conversation on screen with these expressive little animations. And it's moments like that which separate Frieren from your standard anime adaptation. Even small things such as a magical staff being lifted up, a flowery field being blown from side to side, a demon evaporating into bits and pieces, and even individual hair strands are animated with a proper sense of weight to them, which is arguably one of the hardest things to capture in animation, but Frieren does it consistently. I mean, just look at these two scenes of Fern sitting down and Stark putting on a jacket. They are just about the most natural and smooth looking pieces of fabric animation that probably took a ridiculous amount of effort for what should have been a background throwaway scene. Okay, but fight sequences are still one of the most expressive displays of animation, and Frieren did have its fair share of such scenes in episode 4 and earlier, but none of them were too out of the ordinary. At least it was nothing that the audience didn't already expect respect from the studio that made One Punch Man Season 1. But then episode 6 of Frieren came out and everyone collectively lost their fucking minds. In episode 6, you meet Stark for the first time, who is hailed as a warrior and the savior of this tiny village, as someone who drove away the big red dragon. Yet for some reason, he acts like a coward and a crybaby in front of Frieren and refuses to fight the same big red dragon that can level entire buildings in a single slash of his tiny arms. Although in reality, Stark is a strong warrior, a responsible person, and a reliable friend that is merely riddled with self-doubt. And to help him overcome his insecurities, Frieren forces Stark to battle the big red dragon, to face his fear head-on, to stop dwelling on the past, and to get her the goddamn grimoire she wants from that dragon's nest. And so with nothing more than his trusty axe in hand, Stark faces off that dragon all alone on his own. And what a fucking fight that was. This minute-and-a-half long fierce battle sequence between Stark and the Red Dragon was key animated by 6 different individuals, and you can absolutely feel the different styles clashing with each other from one cut to the other, demanding your absolute attention for each and every single frame. And as if that wasn't enough, the producer working on Frieren soon told its viewers to look forward to the episode 9 of the series. What was so special about episode 9, you ask? Well, nothing really. It just had some of the best choreographed and animated action we've seen thus far from an anime already filled with incredibly rich and well-crafted scenes. And as if even that wasn't enough, episode 10 came along only a week later and blew even this episode out the water. Episode 10 featured the end of the battle between Frieren the Mage and the 500-year-old demon Aura the Guillotine, which wasn't so much a battle as it was this single moment of brilliance and uncontained hype created through careful use of flashbacks and overlapping storylines. For many people, the episode 9 and 10 of Frieren are what made the series go from an above-average looking fantasy anime to an outright masterpiece of a show. And so it only makes sense that following these 2 episodes, the term Frieren Friday started trending almost every week. The anime for the first time jumped over to the very top of my anime list. But even more importantly, we got some great memes out of it.
Kill yourself.
Although there were plenty of Frieren memes and fanarts before the Aura the Guillotine arc happened, such as this way too overproduced video of an army of Ferns carrying AK-47 and a bunch of tanks that somehow has 2 million views. But it was only after the events of episode 10 transpired when things truly started going a little out of hand. Here's a few examples. Frieren in the anime is usually a 1000-year-old baby that needs special care and attention from her mom Fern, has a crippling gambling addiction, and likes to reminisce about her past a lot. That same Frieren in the fandom, however, has taken the shape of both a cute little problem-causing menace of an old hag elf and a racist demon-slaying god who knows no mercy against her opponents.
Ara, crush your skull, thank you.
Then there's Aura the Guillotine, who in the anime is pretty much unalive. But the Aura in the Frieren community has taken a life of her own, where she's being forced to work with Frieren the Slayer, act like a cat in every sentence, play violin with her neck, and the worst of all, to work a minimum wage job at a local supermarket. Now that's a fate worse than death. Also, this thing exists for some reason. And it's not even the weirdest one I found in my research. The real life memes of Frieren are also pretty great. And no, I'm not talking about the Frieren cosplayers going for a drive inside a car and wreaking havoc, but instead I'm talking more along the lines of an animated Frieren locked inside a car and wreaking havoc. In this category, you get things like a date gone wrong with Fern, a date gone right with Frieren, a bridge to real life Wendy's worker Fern plushie, and the best of all, this emotional and heart-wrenching scene of Frieren at a Costco.
Costco is unchanged, even now. Back then, Himmel.
But that's not all. The community then went as far as to make full-on animated scenes for every single episode of Frieren. For example, in one of the episodes, Frieren and the gang get stuck in a hailstorm. There's an animation for that. In another episode, Sign gets stuck in a bottomless swamp. There's an animation for that. In one too many episodes, Frieren gets stuck in a mimic. So there's way too many animations for that. In episode 13, Frieren blows a kiss towards Sign. And of course that moment got memed everywhere. A YouTuber named CMAD made a fun little game concept video of that Frieren kissing scene, and in less than a couple of months, a redditor named EchoHell69 had turned this video game concept into an actual functioning game that you can play for free. By now, Frieren has become so popular in the community that even the side characters are getting their own fan arts with tens of thousands of likes on their posts. One of which is the sleepy-eyed character who is also a cold-blooded murderer named Ubel. The name Ubel quite literally translates to bad in German, which is kind of symbolic of just how down bad the entire community is for her. Because you see, Frieren's fanbase are not only dedicated and talented individuals, but they are also fucking degenerates. I think this image perfectly sums up the fandom that surrounds Frieren. When you search of Frieren online, you are either greeted with the most wholesome and cute pieces of fan art and animation possible, or the most cursed and lewd depictions of the cast that you can imagine. That is to say, you can either have a chibi little Frieren squished inside a hamburger, or have a normal sized Frieren's feet squished inside a hamburger. There is no in between. But hey, it's not like the anime is any better in that regard. I mean, just look at all those uncensored head pats. How very lewd and suggestive. Ugh. No wonder the fandom decided to make doujinshis out of them. They were practically forced to. Fun fact, there was apparently so much Frieren stuff going around that some guy tried doing a Frieren any percent Rule 34 speedrun and he got a sub 30-second run on it. It got to the point that Fanza had to put a ban on any and all such creations of Frieren. Of course, that wasn't gonna stop Twitter anytime soon. On a bit more wholesome side, there's also a fair share of crossover Frieren stuff, such as with Spy Family, Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Dungeon Meshi, Apothecary Diaries, Bocchi the Rock, Dark Souls, and finally what I believe is the single greatest thing to have come out of this entire saga. That thing being this animation of Frieren and Shrek riding together on a bike in the middle of the night, which is just about the strangest, most absurd crossover ever, and yet it honestly goes so fucking hard. All these incredible and cool pieces of Frieren fan creations could not have had been possible if the anime didn't care to make the audience give a shit about the series. There are countless such awe-inspiring scenes of sheer excitement, pure wholesomeness, and heart-wrenching sadness in the anime that are special in their own ways. But I think above all else, there is a scene in this show that takes the cake for being the single greatest moment of this entire anime. Fern and Stark have always had a real romantic tension between them, one that resulted from a genuine place of affection and understanding. Their adorable little relationship started back in episode 12 when the two of them went out to pick a birthday gift together, and ever since then, through their endless love quarrels that led to these cute pout faces, and the meaningful interactions that soon followed once they made up, they slowly but surely began growing closer to each other with each passing episode. And I believe there is no other moment in the entire anime that describes their relationship better than the dance scene from episode 15. In the episode, both Stark and Fern have been forced to take part in a dance in order to earn some money for their future travels. After a good long while of etiquette training, the two of them finally join each other for a dance on the day of the waltz. As Fern graciously accepts Stark's offer, the two of them begin dancing together, but their movements look a little awkward. Just then, Stark notices Fern being a little unsure of herself, and being the kind boy that he is, Stark boldly takes the lead, leaving Fern with a surprised look on her face. Then as their movements hasten up, their steps still in sync, they draw the attention of many onlookers and they happily dance their hearts out. This wholesome and fabulous dance that these two idiots share looks and feels astonishingly lifelike. In order to make this scene, they hired some motion capture artists as reference and animated the entire scene without using any CGI at all. Everything from the properly animated background dancers to the precise movements of Stark and Fern to the gorgeous looking fabric animation was done entirely by hand. Not only that, even Call actually scored a brand new piece for this scene, and the string players shown in the middle of the scene are animated playing every note accurately, which are all things that are a part of the technical and visual greatness which can be seen across the entire anime. So what makes this breathtaking minute-long scene one of the greatest in my opinion is that it was adapted through only a single panel in the manga. That's it. They went through the trouble of hiring a motion capture artist, painstakingly drawing every single frame and expression in the utmost detail possible, getting even called to come up with a new piece specifically for this scene alone, and it almost doesn't even happen in the manga. This one scene perfectly encapsulates why the Frieren anime is such a perfect adaptation, one that continuously goes a step beyond what is necessary in order to add on to the original source material and raise it up to newer heights. There were so many places where they could have pulled a shortcut and taken things a little more lightly. Like for example, both the first and second ending songs songs contain these intricate and complex visual styles that are quite difficult to achieve in their own separate ways and must have taken an insane amount of time for something most people will skip out on anyway. But it was precisely because they didn't take any shortcuts that we got to witness so many insane moments of greatness that kept one-upping itself every other episode. Everyone who has worked on the series made no compromises in bringing the series to life. It was their passion and persistence to deliver on even the tiniest aspect of this anime that made Frieren the best fantasy show of last year, the highest rated anime ever for the longest period of time in recent memory, and in turn, it ended up redeeming the Madhouse studio. I say that because after looking at all the high effort memes, the insanely detailed artwork, and the time consuming animations made by the fans of the Frieren anime to show their love and support for the production, I think I can definitively say that Frieren will undoubtedly be remembered for a long time to come. Frieren is an example of what happens when you let some creative and talented artists do whatever they want to do and give them the right time to pull off the things they have in mind. By no means can I claim that roughly 3 years of planning and production period for a product this refined is the most healthy or justified amount of time. But in comparison to many of the other titles such as Records of Ragnarok or Zom 100, I would argue that Frieren is a relatively smoother production that was given enough time and resources to fulfill the visions of its staff members. I don't think it matters if the anime stays on the #1 spot or gets dethroned by some other anime in the near future, because I think Frieren Beyond Journeys and Season 1 has already left enough of an impact to be deservingly praised as a modern masterpiece. From his first episode to the last, Frieren remained a fun little adventure of mesmerizing beauty that was at times a spectacle to behold, which I personally loved throughout. I hope you enjoyed this video and please do consider subscribing in case you did. That's it, thanks for watching.